Madam Chair, you can begin.
Thank you very much, Randy. Welcome, everybody who is here in Harrisburg on Zoom and also those watching via web stream. We're delighted to have you here at our quarterly July PASHI Board of Governors meeting. So let me start by just acknowledging a couple of people sitting around our table. First, Abigail Hancock, the newest member of our board. Abigail, you're a sophomore at IUP and the incoming IUP student body president, right? That's terrific. Well, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us. And if you would like to say a few words, please do.
Thank you, Chair Shapiro. I appreciate it. I just want to say how grateful I am for this opportunity, and I'm excited to get to work here.
Wonderful. Thank you. And let me also acknowledge Dr. Amanda Morris, who is the new chair of the Faculty Council, and by that duty also now our faculty liaison to the board. And we are so delighted to have you here and so value your important perspective that will help inform our decision making. So welcome again. And would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair Shapiro and Chancellor. First, I just want to say I'm really appreciative of the fact that the Faculty Council exists now as a permanent part of the structure. We really appreciate the opportunity to participate and provide our perspective. And second, I've been in the system for 12 years. And as long as I've been here, for me personally and many faculty system-wide, we've been fighting to create changes to improve DEI. And now with this amazing historic funding, we might actually be able to implement some of those changes. And I just want you to know, we as your faculty are well positioned to start this work immediately because of our long history of fighting for those changes. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so very much. And let me also welcome Dr. Kim McCurdy, who is here for Tanya Garcia, and Tara Williams, who is here for Allison. So welcome and delighted to see you all. So Sharisa, can we please have a roll call of the board members?
Yes, good morning. Governor Vogel,
Good morning, present.
Thank you. Representative Briggs,
Morning, present.
Who's there?
good. Governor Gindelsberger,
Here.
Governor Hancock,
Here.
Designee Tara Williams.
Here.
Senator Martin,
Here.
Governor Mazur, Governor Moskowitz, Designee Kim McCurdy, excuse me,
Here.
Representative Roy,
Here.
Senator Schwank,
Here.
Governor Scott, Chair Shapiro,
Here.
Governor Skinner,
Good morning, here.
Governor Smith,
Here.
Governor Walder. Here. Governor Weaver.
He's on.
Gov- Okay, thank you.
I think his
Governor
video
Yeomans?
is frozen.
Governor Yeomans
Here.
and Faculty Liaison Amanda Morris.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to ask everybody in the room to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which one nation under God, indivisible. Hey, thank you very much. Well, again, we're so happy to be here. And this is our first board meeting since the Commonwealth finished its budget for the new fiscal year. And of course, words almost fail me. I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude and appreciation to the governor and to the General Assembly for making this investment in the state system universities. It is such an example. It's an example of so many things. It's an example, first of all, in the deep faith and belief in our system and in our students, and in our important place in the Commonwealth. It's evidence of a partnership, and it's evidence that we have come such a long way in fulfilling our promise, really 5 years in the making. And it represents, I think, a wonderful example for public higher education across the country. It's something that's been captured in various journals and publications and in the media. And again, as an example of a system that worked and partnered and really made every effort from the board down, with the chancellor leading, to get to this historic moment. So again, I really don't have words to describe the importance of this and the appreciation and the gratitude that we all have. And my thanks to everybody around this table, in this room, on Zoom, et cetera, who did so much to create the circumstance where this could happen. And we are pledged, of course, now that we've received this historic level of funding, to ensure the dollars are invested as wisely as possible, not in routine operations, but to prepare ourselves for the future and to be very, very strategic about it. And that's going to be an important topic in today's meeting, which is to talk about this next phase of system redesign and the focus on our priorities that we have for the next few years. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a very exciting time to be part of the state system. And yes, we have far to go, and there are still lots of things that have to be fixed. And we want our relationships at all levels to be strong and positive, with our faculty, with our trustees, with all of our stakeholders. And that is going to be an important part of this next phase too. And to my personal goal, I would state simply, make sure we're all on the same page and all have the same North Star. And the reason for all of this is so that we can fulfill our promise to more students, to get credentials, to get degrees, and to launch successful careers that contribute to the economic development of the Commonwealth. We will be investing in efforts to make this system an inclusive and welcoming and supportive place to learn and to work. Along those lines, please mark your calendars for November 2nd to 4th for our annual Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit. I think this is important, not just for us, but again, a model for the country. Dr. Denise Pearson is leading that, of course. I'm thrilled to be making some opening remarks, and I really encourage everybody who can attend, all or part of it, to do so. It's of course important that this phase will see us investing in our universities. With this historic funding, we're able to do that. And our point is to have them poised to serve more and more and more students through programs and modalities, supported with services that meet them where they are and enable them to be as successful as possible in completing their educations and launching their careers. So I feel like today we are, in a way, even with all the hard work ahead of us, and again, not with everything perfect everywhere, we nevertheless are celebrating a time of reinvestment and renewal. And our conversations are going to focus on this today. So thank you all very much. That concludes my opening comments, and I would now like to turn to Randy to facilitate public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If there's anyone here in the Dixon Center or on the public phone line who would like Dixon Center here at the BIA headquarters, or on, I'm sorry, it's hard to break old habits. or anyone on the phone line who'd like to offer public comment, just step forward. If you're on the phone line, press *9 to digitally raise your hand and we'll call on you. If you're here, just step to the podium. We have one on the phone line. All right. For the caller, if you'll press *6 to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick Marcel. Sure that you've heard me speak numerous times. I just wanted to point out to some of the stuff being covered in today's meeting and such, and also sort of the talk of state system redesign. I also want to remind folks who are, there and listening that, this quote unquote historic investment, is a historically low investment. If you don't know, actually, the same day in which the 6 schools were, consolidated on July 1st was actually the day that PASSHE was founded. But PASSHE was founded in 1983, where the actual general appropriations number was close to about $690 million in today's dollars. But again, the board and the chancellor only requested $550 million in the general appropriation fund. Back then, PASSHE actually had about 10,000 less students than we do now. So I always wonder to myself, why do more students deserve less? Additionally, I find it interesting talking about the next phase of the PASSHE redesign and the supposed wonderful example when the just past phase of public comment around a consolidation plan that it seemed nobody in the public wanted was not listened to, was not heard. And I find that quite shameful. And I don't understand how this new phase is going to be an even greater example. I find it hard to believe that. Additionally, I wonder to myself what strong and positive relations that, the board and the chancellor's office wants with faculty, with students, with staff, with alumni, with, these communities that these universities are within, when, as I stated before, just last year, so many public comments were just not even considered, were not really listened to, as these plans for consolidation just seemed ahead. Additionally, I want to point out that there's a specific thing on the agenda today about the sort of restructuring of the Council of Trustees at the 2 new quote unquote universities. And I'd like to say that it's pretty sad that, when we talk a lot about, democracy, that, and trying to have these democratic processes, throughout the state and so on, that, there is not one for, let's say, even just electing students to be on each of the Council of Trustees. I really encourage folks, if you care about democracy, if you care about actually having students have a voice and, be a part of some sort of democratic process, to maybe be able to elect their own student trustees. I think that would be a better state in things to, as the chairwoman said, to have strong and positive relations with stakeholders. Otherwise, I know it can be kind of, isolating to, just have students be picked rather than have some sort of democratic process. And, it's just is what it is. I see it, but it's just sad sometimes. And, lastly, I'd just like to say, I really hope that, folks are listening and understanding that, this redesign isn't something that it seemed like a lot of folks in the public wanted. It, doesn't seem like faculty, students, staff, community members, that they were clamoring for it. What they're clamoring for is a fully funded state system of free public higher education. And also that students actually maybe can go to PASSHE without having any debt, because the supposed promise of PASSHE, giving students, higher education at, the lowest possible cost, when that cost has just risen over years and years. And yes, over the past couple of years, there have been some freezes, but in reality, students are still graduating with tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And it's just quite sad. And I really hope that the board, the chancellor's office, that legislators, that everyone in the state and in the country is actually doing something to make sure that the student debt crisis is eliminated and that it doesn't exist. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Nick Marcel. And, you know, let's fight for a fully funded state system of free public higher education. And I hope some folks on that call are actually doing that. Thank you.
There are no other hands raised, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. And now on our agenda, we would offer time for remarks from our union leaders. Dr. Ken Mash from APSCA, if you would like to.
Good morning, Chair Shapira, Chancellor Greenstein, governors, faculty liaison, and guests here as well. I heard you say that you've been here for only 12, you've been here 12 years, and you made it like that was a lot. That's not a lot. So I just want to clarify that. You're still new from my eyes. I want to start off by saying, as has been the case as long as I've had a relationship with the chancellor and with the chair, I do appreciate the openness and the fact that we can have frank discussions one-on-one and to try and solve problems. And so I do appreciate that. I also want to start off by saying that, yes, we do, the faculty, appreciate the efforts by the legislature and by the governor to get more funds. I'd like to echo what the public comment said too, as far as putting that in some perspective, but I spoke about that the last time I spoke. Amid all this though, we still have to recognize that there are facts on the ground and there's life at the universities. And last week, I got a call from a faculty member who was retrenched in 2020. And that faculty member was still stunned. I mean, the faculty member had classes that were enrolled. They had done what they had been asked to do as a faculty member to achieve their rank. But, you know, they still nevertheless were retrenched. And to make matters worse, this faculty member felt like they had been forgotten and they felt betrayed by their university and by the system overall. After all, you know, the faculty member was not the person who was in a decision-making capacity, who made decisions about the university, which ultimately created problems at that university, if in fact there was a need to retrench at the university. So I want to assure my colleagues who were retrenched that they haven't been forgotten. And I want to urge the president here and on Zoom to still actively try to recall those faculty members who are out there. There were 114 faculty members who received retrenchment letters in October 2020. And there are 27 of these faculty members who are still out there, who had been retrenched and still have recall rights. Now, you know, I was going to read off the names of these people because I really sincerely want them to understand that they have not been forgotten. I'm not going to do that, both for time's sake and for also because I don't want to identify them without their permission in doing so. But they need to be acknowledged. And acknowledging them doesn't even begin to tell the story of what happens when retrenchment takes place at a university. We have to understand that when those letters go out, what happens is there's a ripple effect where you have people who just flat out retire rather than be retrenched. You know, out of that list of 100 or so, several retired. Other people retired just so that their colleague could keep a job, right? So they retired so that there would be a space so that their colleague could continue, their junior colleague could continue. And other faculty members resigned because they were early enough in their careers that they could find another faculty position. Now, I understand, and this is real, that there are those who think that, those faculty, they think they're entitled to a job. That's kind of thinking, that statement, I think can only be made from a complete misunderstanding of academia and the professoriate. Once faculty have achieved a rank of associate or full professor in a system like ours at our universities like that, a retrenchment is likely the end of their academic career. There isn't go find another job, because with those jobs that are available, they're going to be hiring junior faculty members. They're not going to be hiring people who are moving unless they, yes, it does happen that people move from university to university, but it's more likely to happen at major research universities or at Ivy League schools that kind of movement occurs. Ultimately, it's not a matter of a feeling of entitlement. It's a matter of trust. A trust that says, if you commit yourself to the institution, if you do the things that you are asked to do, that is, after you've attended graduate school for a number of years and jumped through all the hoops that are required to be a professor, your university will not retrench you unless the situation is so dire that the existence of the university itself, of the existence of a system like ours, was demonstrably in peril. In fact, the standard that's used by the American Association of University Professors states that there needs to be a financial exigency before even considering whether faculty jobs are to be put in peril. Understand the decision to retrench faculty has a dramatic and lasting effect. Recruiting faculty becomes more difficult because the institution has now a reputation for turning their backs on that trust that people expect. After watching their colleagues be retrenched, those who remain are demoralized. And it's easy for me to say that, you might think, but I did live through it. People become demoralized. They become angry. And they're wondering, am I next? Because again, it doesn't necessarily have to make sense where the retrenchments occur or how they occurred at the university. And certainly that's the case for those who currently still have what so-called intent to retrench letters. And then we do have faculty members who still have that, thanks to the governor for holding back on what was a retrenchment, and the legislature too for providing funds. But we just need to understand that retrenching faculty has an effect that carries itself forward to the entire faculty, who are increasingly likely to withdraw and to feel unappreciated and despondent. I don't think I really need to remind anyone that my colleagues do the work, not just in the classroom. You need them to go above and beyond. I share the thoughts. I'm glad that we are looking at some things that have long overdue to be looked at. And it's nice to be in here, and you have your responsibility, and I respect the responsibilities that you have. And I respect the job of the president's, a job I would never really want to have. But ultimately, if you're going to carry out your goals, you need the faculty to be on board. You need them to consider the professorate not just a job. You need, for this system to be successful, for the faculty to view their jobs as a calling. That is something people ought to remember when the topic of retrenchment arises. It's what guides the spirit, I believe, of our contract that we have with the system, that we should together do everything possible to avoid retrenchment. I know that there are university presidents in this room who do get it. I know that at least a couple of them have gone out of their way to find positions for retrenchees, not even from their universities, from other universities, to make sure that they have a position. And we do appreciate it, and we thank you for that. Chairwoman Shapira, Chancellor Greenstein, members of the board, we worked very hard to try and restore trust, to build a relationship out of what was really a very, very bad situation here. And we tried to build a shared sense of mission for all of us. And you just spoke about that, truly. And I appreciate that hard work that went into doing that. But you need to understand too, that trust has been severely shaken. Please, 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 let it be an imperative part of your mission to restore that trust fully. Please, please, please don't forget my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mash, appreciate it. Our next item is an update on Pact. And let me call on Rich Friedrichs.
And Rich, you're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Rich. Nope, you're still on mute, Rich.
Yep,
There we go.
I got it.
There we go.
We young guys have trouble with all this technology and all that stuff, but thank you, Madam Chair. It is a privilege to represent PAC at the first meeting that includes our integrated universities. My name is Rich Ferrix, and I'm the current first vice president of Pact. Our president, Melissa Bauer, sends her regrets as she is on a week-long bike ride in the mountains with friends and is out of cell range. Please keep Melissa in your thoughts and prayers as she takes this week-long bike ride. Now, while the budget and its complicated maneuverings have consumed much of our time recently, and we want to thank the Chancellor and his staff for their steady hand on the till that brought the budget to a successful conclusion. This will provide us with a firm foundation as we move forward. Now, this being considered, PAC did have time for other things. As a body, PAC believes it is important to involve all trustees in the workings of our universities and provide a voice for these persons. To this end, the PAC modified its bylaws recently to include these individuals in PAC matters, making sure that all of our historic universities are heard from. There's still work to be done on the bylaws, and that will be part of our focus in the next several months. We would like to give a special thanks to Senator Scott Martin, who with his staff championed an amendment to the school code, which will ensure a more positive representation of our integrated institutions as we move forward. Thank you very, very much, Scott, and please relay our thanks to your staff. Now, wishing to be involved, the next big question is how can we, as individual trustees and PACT as a body, assist in moving our system to the next level? And we look forward to working with everyone to accomplish this goal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate those remarks. And now, actually, before we move on to the business part of our agenda, I'm going to pause here and welcome a very special guest who is joining us via Zoom. And that special guest is Patty Kunkel, who is Vice President of the Association of Governing Boards of Universities and Colleges, which is the national organization that provides all resources and all good things to ensure the finest in higher education governing boards and their practices. So this spring, the AGB named the Board of Governors as the recipient of one recipient of the annual John W. Nason Award for Board Leadership. It's of course very much appreciated, this kind of acknowledgement. I just have always maintained the importance of boards and good governance and the ability to think critically, ask critical questions, have high-level, policy-oriented, strategy-oriented discussions and make decisions that are based on those discussions and based on facts and evidence. And I have said for a long time that I think our board really does operate that way. And it's very different from when I started on the board a full now 6 years ago. I've just completed 6 full years on the board. So obviously I think this is well-deserved, but you know, try to be a little bit modest. Anyway, we are delighted to have Patty join us today to officially present the award to this board, which I think is really, I mean, from my point of view, the best board I've ever worked with. And it's in recognition of your just incredible work and leadership. And it's really pretty too. Wow. So with that, let me turn to Patty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to join your board meeting. It is an honor to be with you today, and I'm especially delighted to be here as a proud native of Pennsylvania, born and raised in Berks County. On behalf of the AGB Board of Directors and the entire AGB team, I wish to extend our sincere congratulations to the Board of Governors of Pennsylvania's state system of higher education for exceptional governance and service. The Nason Award is incredibly important to AGB because we believe strongly in the power of example. Boards like yours who are doubling down on what matters most, taking risks, and achieving greatness serve as an important example for higher education. Our members appreciate learning from the experiences of their peers, and AGB is proud to share your story. I hope you saw the article on this year's Nason recipients in Trusteeship magazine earlier this year. Pashy's journey was also highlighted in a featured article in the May issue of Trusteeship. If you are not familiar with AGB's John W. Nason Award for Board Leadership, this award is presented by AGB in partnership with TIAA to higher education governing boards that demonstrate exceptional leadership and initiative. It is obvious that higher education is operating in a tumultuous environment, and we must step up. We at AGB find that acknowledging accomplishments to be even more important during times of extreme challenge and uncertainty, and we find ourselves in such a situation now. The challenges that higher education is facing will not disappear after the pandemic subsides. We need inclusive, passionate board leaders who are willing to be bold in the face of adversity. The recipients of the AGB Nason Award exemplify the leadership we need going forward. As leaders in higher education, you all have the knowledge and power to determine the course we're on. Your ideas, energy, insights, and support can help catalyze the change that higher education needs in order to navigate the future and reach for something greater. And I am so very glad to be able to present this award to you today. The Pashy System Board was chosen from a diverse array of nominations by a panel of your peers. Among the attributes of your submission, it struck the panel how your board, Chancellor, and senior leadership not only recognized that transformational change was necessary, but that it would take a bold, even audacious plan to meet today's challenges. The importance of the board's willingness to pursue a system redesign cannot be understated. As the nomination application noted, oftentimes boards can call for a systematic review for change, but then file that plan away for later, and then later never comes. But this time, the Pashy board took the initiative to do something historic. One of the AGB's most popular publications is titled An Anatomy of Good Board Governance in Higher Education. Essentially, the formula for effective board governance is the right focus plus the right composition plus the right relationships. I think the Pesci board story is a textbook example of effective governance in action. Consider how the board set the necessary strategic priorities that would allow for a consequential and effective plan. The 5 priorities in the system redesign include strengthening governance and accountability, stabilizing the system financially, addressing student affordability, forging a closer relationship with the Commonwealth, and expanding student opportunity and impact. Any one of these priorities is a commendable goal. Tackling them all together is a seismic proposition demanding confidence, a clear-eyed vision, and grit. In many cases, that is what it takes. Pesci's leaders clearly have the right focus and the right composition. Pesci's ability to work with its faculty, staff, students, members of the community, lawmakers, and the governor all point to having the right relationships. Perhaps the issue that has generated the most attention is the decision to integrate 6 separate institutions into 2 universities. I have seen other boards and other universities struggle with this level of change. We in higher education know the kind of commitment it takes to transform one institution, let alone 6. It can be unnerving not knowing exactly how the future will unfold, whether the decisions you make then will have the desired effect. But the unanimous decision, 18-0, to approve the university integration shows the level of work that went into it and trust that the board has in system leadership. I commend everyone involved for their dedication to the state system and its students. As you all know, the work is not yet done. The first cohort of students to attend these new universities will move in next month. We are excited to see the outcomes that result from the redesign, the university integrations, and the other myriad steps that Pesci and the board have taken to elevate student success and institutional vitality across the state. Beyond that, the strategic priorities laid out in the system redesign do not expire even after the plan comes to its fruition. They demand continuous monitoring and improvement. Given the process over the last several years, I am very confident the Pesci Board of Governors is up to the challenge. Therefore, in sum, the Nason Award panel believes that your board's courageous leadership and commitment to leading practices makes it a model for colleges and universities nationwide. Your board's approach embodies the ideals of responsible governance for which AGB is known. The selection committee, and indeed all of us at AGB, hope and intend that others will learn from your example. It is my privilege to present virtually the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education Board of Governors with AGB's 2022 John W. Nason Award for Board Leadership. Congratulations.
Thank you again, Patty. We're really overwhelmed. I'm just gonna, it's really heavy. Pick this up and show everybody this beautiful award. Again, you know, I'm so proud of everybody on this board and the work that we did to come to that decision and to continue so much work that lies ahead of us with system redesign. And of course, we can't thank enough Dan and his team in the Chancellor's office, the presidents, the faculty, our councils of trustees, and our partners in the General Assembly and in the Governor's office. This was truly a team effort. You know, obviously it wasn't without some disagreement, maybe even a lot of disagreement sometimes in some places, but ultimately we kept the North Star in mind, what we all want to have for our students and for this Commonwealth. And I think that, and as I said, some great work by everybody got us to this point where It's so great and thank you very much, but we've got so much ahead of us. So we're going to continue to work. Thank you again, everyone. Okay, let us move on now to the business agenda. Let's start with approval of the consent agenda. And those items are listed in your copies, your board packet, which went out. The consent agenda items consist of the following: meeting minutes from previous meetings since the last time we met as a board, technical revisions to board policies 1994-01-A and 2000-01-A, reappointment of student trustees at the integrated universities, and standing committee assignments, for which I thank all of you for participating on the committees. So we are going to consider these items in one motion unless any member of the board wishes to pull out something and consider it separately. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Very good. We will now move on to the Chancellor's remarks, but before I turn to you, Dan, for your remarks and what will be a presentation about the next phase of system redesign, I just want to again stress, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, you'll forgive me, but it just bears repeating. The future of the system really depends on our ability to continue to transform ourselves. And it must be in the direction that we know we have to move in order to help the Commonwealth meet the huge demand for talent in this state in order to make it economically competitive, indeed more than competitive. You know, we want to be at the top. So we have to do our part by doubling down on our efforts to get our students in and out and into successful careers or into advanced degree programs. That's our job. In order to do that, we know we have to provide the supports to our students that they need to be successful. As we continue to reach out to broaden our student base to non-traditional seekers of higher education, we absolutely must continue to serve our traditional student base. So we have to very well serve the traditional students that we have and that we have always been about, while at the same time making very intentional efforts to expand our reach. So, you know, they're going to come from every walk of life, including adult learners who want to come back in for a credential or even a degree that will help them go back out into the job market and advance it. We anticipate a world where there is continuous learning and continuous need to drop in and out of higher education in, I don't know, almost every profession, almost every industry and economic sector. So we have to constantly be ahead of the game if we can to align our degree programs with the needs of current and future students and their future employers. And so this requires us to sort of think differently, to develop a different set of tools to accomplish this, and a different perspective where this is just not 1980 any longer, where, you know, you pretty much knew who was coming in, and there was a model in place, you know, for students in bachelor level higher education, and that was that. We're just in a very, very different world. So I think this board really has the ability, it's shown it has the ability, and will continue to think differently and to appreciate that this is a new world, right, of higher education and economy. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to help us take it to this next level.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Chair. Appreciate it. So I want to start, and thanks, Teresa, for the slides. I want to echo the thanks. Actually, Teresa, it'd be great if we could see it in the other view so I can remember what's coming ahead of me. Because despite playing PowerPoint karaoke for many years, I'm not as good as I used to be. So I want to express my gratitude as well and echo the thanks to Governor Wolf, to the General Assembly for their historic investment. To remind folks, is increased our base funding by 16%. And provide an additional 125 million in one-time funding. That's in addition to the 25 million we received last year in the ARP federal funds. This investment represents a restoration of our partnership with our owners, the state. The restoration of the state's confidence in its system and the value it returns to the Commonwealth. It is a restoration of the confidence in the work that we do every day for our students, their communities, and this Commonwealth. I want to thank the board, especially our state senators, Senator Martin, Senator Schwank, and our representatives, Representative Roy and Briggs, the presidents for their support, colleagues on Pact, and ABSCUF and AFSCME, all of us rolling up our sleeves and abdicating with one voice for who we are and why we should care. But in the end, this investment is a result of the great work that we do, not here, occasionally in the boardroom, though of course we do great work occasionally here in the boardroom, but every day on our campuses with our students. Some 24,000 of them cross the stage in some figurative form just a few months ago because of the work that you do and have done in the midst of tremendous change on our campuses, across our system, across our country. Recovering that confidence from our owners, the state, has resulted in this investment. This has been a long road, at least a decade long. But I'm sure there are many in this room who would justifiably argue that it has been even longer. And it has been a hard road involving our navigating tremendous pressure and change that is coming at us, at all of us, at an accelerating pace. Change that our staff and faculty are managing with enormous effort right now, this morning, in the preparation for term, in standing up our integrating universities, in integrating their technology stacks, in blending their curricula and preparing for their first cohort of students. So before we look into the future, I want to just express my gratitude and admiration, honestly, to all of our faculty, our staff, our trustees, our alumni, who are on this journey together. Grateful for your effort, your commitment, your compassion, collective creativity, intelligence, and yes, resilience. So I want to pause a moment there and now look to the future with Teresa's help. Teresa, can I see the, can we show it not in view so I can see the slides? Just hit escape. Oh, hit escape, I think maybe. Nope. All right, I'll just look at the slides and try to remember what comes next. And you'll forgive me if I say it. You're going to reload it, right, Teresa? And while Teresa's reloading it, let me remind us why we're doing what we're doing, not just today, but over the last several years as we navigate this journey. If you go to the next slide. This is really not about us, our universities and our system. It's about the state, our owners. Right now in Pennsylvania, 60% of all jobs require someone in them with some higher education. And only about 51% of adults have some higher education. So that's a gap. It's a tremendous gap. And if you go to the next slide, see that that gap exists across all sectors. Advanced manufacture, agribusiness, education. Just in the last couple of weeks, we had meetings with members of Commonwealth agencies begging us for more teachers, for more healthcare workers, particularly in the behavioral, all of whom we can produce, of course, but obviously we need the state support. And it exists, that urgent demand at all levels, but you'll see in the slide in the table that the biggest demand is for the kinds of degrees that we produce, master's degrees and bachelor's degrees. That's where the biggest gap is. So to go to the next slide, we did a little work last year trying to figure out, okay, what would it take for us, our universities, to fill that gap? What additionally would we need to do in terms of producing graduates, people with credentials, in order to just do our part? So we basically looked at our share of the current total of credentials produced in the state of Pennsylvania. So what additionally would we need to do? We would need 2,000 more bachelors every year, 1,200 more masters, and about 2,500 more non-degree credentials, certificates, credentials that are aligned to industry need. To achieve that, we'd have to enroll about 18,000 more students, 20% enrollment growth. That's a lot. About 11,000, 11.5 undergraduates, 3,500 graduates, about 3,000 people seeking non-degree credentials. And that model assumes, by the way, that all of our students are earning credentials that are in high demand, which is not always the case. But more importantly, it also assumes that every single university and college in the state of Pennsylvania is doing the same thing, is stepping up to their portion. So I'm looking at a 10% increase in our bachelors and a 50% increase in our masters. How many universities and colleges do you know in the state of Pennsylvania that are increasing their credentialing productivity at that rate? Or increasing their enrollments at a 20% rate in order to achieve that productivity? I checked. There aren't any. Stands to reason that it's the state's owned universities. Their load might need to fall to us. So you say, well, where are we going to get those enrollments to grow our credentialing productivity and service to the state? So if you go to the next slide, which is familiar to many of you, that's the slide showing the number of high school graduates year on year in blue and expected in yellow. That is the well-known demographic cliff that you see in 2026 when those numbers drop by 10% over the next several years. So the traditional pool of students that we draw from is shrinking at a time that we need to grow in the interest of the state, our owners. So there are growth opportunities. If you go to the next slide, which we've spoken about, and all of this stuff we spoke about last year as we were preparing our ask of the state. Where does that growth come from? Well, it comes from improving our student outcomes. Today, about 63% of our students graduate within 6 years. That means 37% don't. We actually did a little math because we can't help ourselves, which shows that if we were to achieve the highest 6-year graduation rate prevailing currently at one of our universities in the system, we would get about a third of the way to the growth we need to achieve. That's raising our 6-year graduation rate from about 63% to about 73%. That shouldn't be beyond us. And obviously, in order to improve those graduation rates, we have to eliminate the attainment gaps, which are real and persistent, and they're nagging. And they're obviously, they have to do with race. Underrepresented minorities graduate at 20% lower rate than non-underrepresented traditional white students. Those gaps also exist by region. Our rural students don't do as well as our urban students. And by income, students from low income backgrounds don't do as well as our high income backgrounds. So we have to improve, narrow those gaps, eliminate those gaps in order to improve our outcomes. But that doesn't completely fill the gap. That gets us about a third of the way. So obviously we have to do better in traditional areas where we're so good, high school, community colleges. We have to improve our, I hate to say it, our market share, which has been declining in both those areas. And that doesn't also get us all the way. So we're looking at expanding into underserved adjacent new student markets. 3 of them we've identified: college ready, but not college bound. There are regions in the state in under-resourced communities where students are graduating from high school with all the capability that would enable them to be admitted to one of our universities, but they're not going to college. Adults with college and no degree might want to come back to college and complete their degree. There are 1 million of them in Pennsylvania. And remember, the demand for people with a degree is higher than the number of people available with a degree. So that's a very high potential opportunity. And also people who are looking simply to reskill and to upskill. They do probably want a degree, but maybe just to improve their skills in whatever, project management, IT, some aspect of healthcare. So there are opportunities that are actually quite large that we need to focus on. And it will require our investing in programs that feed directly into high demand occupation. They make up 75% of our enrollments today. Non-degree credentials to grow the number of industry recognized credentials that are available, maybe as short course certificates. We're going to need to explore more fully online options, because adults who are working and they have a family, they don't have the opportunity, the luxury, frankly, of face-to-face education. And yet they too will do better for their families and themselves with the benefit of some form of higher education, and obviously building new partnerships with the state. If you go to the next slide, we are well prepared to move in this direction. We award 24,000+ credentials every year from programs that align closely with employer need. We produce graduates who live and stay in the state. We offer a quick and efficient path to credentialing growth, probably the lowest marginal cost of an additional credential than if you compare it with other universities and colleges. And we're already expanding capability, not capability, in key areas. We're growing already in non-degree credentials and online education, online opportunities, as an example. And this isn't new. If you go to the next slide, this is actually the argument we made last year in the letter that we wrote to the governor and leaders of the General Assembly, making the case for their investment, their additional investment in the university that they own. If you go to the next slide, it's also not new, because this has really been the journey that we've been on as part of our system redesign. There we go. Which obviously began necessarily seeking to stabilize and strengthen our universities and our system financially. That was a key in reestablishing the confidence of our owners, the state, to get our arms around a handful of very well articulated problems. Stop raising tuition. Come up with a strategy for your low enrolled schools, which are struggling financially. Spend within your means. Show us that you can behave as every American family by spending no more than you earn. And we undertook that work, and it has been hard. And it has resulted in our restoration of confidence of our owners, the state, reinvestment in our system, so that we can continue the journey for its purpose, which was not to stabilize our management and our finances, although that was an essential step along the way, but to undertake this growth for the sake of the Commonwealth. Because it's hard to imagine what will happen in a Commonwealth which is unable to source a workforce that it needs to compete. So I want to turn quickly against that context to the forward look. So every year I establish priorities for the system, which become, I guess, my goals as the chancellor, cascaded to the president's and really act as a framework within which we're asking them to work. And obviously these goals are developed quite closely in conversation with the president's board, our stakeholders across the system. So this year we really continue the work that we started last with some evolution. Randy, Sherry, if you go to the next slide. Expanding student opportunities and improving student outcomes. Large area to really begin the kind of growth. We'll go in a minute and look at some of the detail. Expanding our student affordability. That's not just about, not just about investment from the state. We're disappointed, of course, that we didn't get 200 million that we asked for direct to student funding. The cost of our education is still high, even though we're the most affordable option in the state. The reason we can't often fill those requests for more teachers or more healthcare workers is that the cost of the education that we're providing in those areas is higher than is repaid by those folks when they go off into the labor market. So they need help, and there are other areas which need investment. Obviously, we'll continue to operate sustainably. We have to. I mean, it's good practice. Why should we do any differently than any other American family as we manage ourselves? But it's also key to maintaining the confidence and the level of investment that we're enjoying today. Continue to strengthen our partnership with the state. But as the chairwoman recognized in her earlier remarks, and as Dr. Mash reminded us, we have to invest in our people. We have to develop the capabilities that we need to grow in the areas that we know we need to grow in. It's interesting. I've learned after about 40 years in around higher education, that higher education is not like a fire hose or a water hose. You don't turn it to the next person, they get just as wet as the last. Educating an adult who's working with a family, engaging with that student effectively so that they are able to accomplish their goals, achieve their credential, is fundamentally different than engaging effectively with a Black student from Philadelphia, which is fundamentally different than engaging effectively with the student who comes to us from a foster family, which is fundamentally different yet again from a high achieving student who come to us fourth generation in their family to go to college with all the resources that means in terms of support. We are asking our faculty and our staff to develop whole new service lines, if you like. And it turns out you can't just go to a faculty member or a staff member and say, hey, could you be more culturally competent, please? Or, could you introduce more high impact practices in your classroom, because the research shows that actually helps. You have to provide the supports that people need in order to be able to succeed in the areas we know we need to succeed in. And we have those capabilities already across our institutions in pockets. How do we expand them, scale them up? And that was the purpose of reestablishing the confidence of the state and the investment in this institution, is so that we can do what we need to build the capabilities internally that allow us to grow in service to the state. So you'll see these goals, they'll materialize on the web and eventually in the not too distant future. They will be associated with measures that we'll watch routinely, that look at our student outcomes. Are we improving our graduation rates? Are we improving our retention? Are we eliminating or reducing the attainment gaps we spoke about? We'll look at affordability. We'll ensure that we continue to find ways to enroll students, obviously from diverse backgrounds, but focusing in particular on ensuring that those who have from low income households are able to afford the price of an education, and operating sustainably, obviously, sort of our license to operate generally as a partner with the state. So we'll see and we'll watch as we expand in these areas. I don't think we need to go any further. We have enormous amount of detail under each one of these slides, which we can share with the board and make available publicly. And maybe, Teresa, maybe if you just take through just to give one example of the kinds of things we're looking at. If you go down maybe 2 slides, or they're not there. Oh, that's right. We can leave it there. Oh, there we go. We switched. So let's just look at one of those opportunity areas, things that we're working on. We know we're working on across the system, improving retention rates, graduation rates. It's a key goal for our presidents and their teams. Our faculty liaison spoke about the need to reduce access, to increase access and reduce attainment gaps, to invest in our people's ability to ensure that our students are achieving irrespective of race, region, income, to expand our college, community college and our high school pipelines. Last year, we amended our transfer policy, and we're looking forward to its implementation this year to grow our enrollments in that regard and to see growth in the number of non-degree credentials that we're offering. So those are areas that we'll be looking at. And we have this detail for each of these opportunity areas, and I look forward to reporting to the board on the way that goes. I will one final comment. It's been an interesting period of budget process is an interesting process. I think it's probably more interesting to our elected representatives than even more interesting to our elected representatives who go through it. But to get to the end of it and to see the success we have, and you reflect on that and recognize that we're really at a watershed moment where we have an opportunity, the opportunity that so many of us have fought so hard for and worked so hard for to accomplish, and it's here. And all of a sudden, it's sort of a shift in gears, and it's kind of a wow. We can do this. We can rebuild. We can reinvigorate. We can reinvest. Double down on the service that we offer to our students and the state. And frankly, Madam Chair, it's exciting, exhilarating, a little terrifying, but we have great colleagues. We have great faculty. We have tremendous staff. I can't tell you how excited I am to turn this page, quite frankly, and move forward in this direction. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. I think that was a pretty comprehensive explanation of what phase 3 of system redesign means and is all about. In terms of the measurable goals, we're going to be obviously, keeping an eye and asking for reporting. I'd like to get to a point where I know this was like a first go at them, but I would like to get to the point where maybe we can be able to feel confident that we can put some meat on the bones and be a little more specific about what we expect as a result, for example, of pipelines being strengthened with community colleges and high schools. Like, what are we actually looking for in terms of outcomes? And there were a couple of others like that as well. So that's our job, is the oversight, and you can be sure we'll be performing it. But it's certainly in the right direction. And we all appreciate how we are how you are underscoring, and we are again applauding that and expecting to come back to that to do oversight on that. The need to serve the quote non-traditional student populations such as adult learners, but greatly increase actions to help retain and graduate underrepresented minorities, low-income students, first-generation students, among the more traditional age, in addition to these new markets of students that we need to get into. I'll also be curious as to, and we haven't really talked about this, but the extent to which this is a shield against the expected cliff, to 2025, 26 cliff. I think we should keep, you don't have to answer that now, but I think we should just keep talking about that, right? Because it's almost like we really have to do this anyway because of our enrollment situation. But are we gonna have to really ramp it up, right, as 2025 starts to approach, and we see this decline starting to happen. In addition, at the April board meeting, we asked the system office and the presidents to explore some issues directly stemming from the enrollment management workshops that we had, such as, and and this keeps coming up on this board, the extent to which it makes sense and would be effective to have some system level engagement in, for example, branding, marketing, et cetera. So, we look forward to hearing more about that. I think that's a big concern on this board. And we've expressed that, even including yesterday when we met in workshop. We want to see how we're addressing preparing to meet these new students where they are as well. What are the new supports and actions, and what are the kinds of things that we're doing, and what are those outcomes looking like so far? And then I think finally talking about these pathways, and especially really kind of a whole new big focused effort on credentialing, as well as how we're going to be innovative and inclusive to ensure that students, and I'm using now that term very broadly because I think they're undergraduates. I know I actually had an example of that very recently, working with students who were on an internship program in a foreign country. And when we went around the room asking what school they attended and what they expected to get their major in, I would say out of a group of 12, at least 4 or 5 also mentioned, my bachelor's in such and such and a credential and such and such. It was really interesting because I didn't really understand the extent to which undergraduates see credentials, that market, let alone the adult learner market. So I think that is a huge, huge opportunity. So if we can just expand this assignment to contemplate all of that, and we look forward to hearing much more on this as you present your detailed plan regarding the 2025 system priorities plan in October. Good. Okay, Randy, are we gonna continue?
I don't think we need a break unless you do.
No, I think, are we okay continuing? Thought about a break, but we're good. Okay. Okay, so we are now going on to items 9A and 9B, which are the fiscal year 22-23 education in general appropriation allocation. And I'm going to ask Sharon Minnick to present items 9A and 9B in your packet with regard to the appropriation allocation and related information.
Thank you.
Yes,
To run up to the table.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to echo the appreciation to the governor and the General Assembly for the historic investment in our students. As background, over the course of the past 12 months, a team of individuals across the system came together to help craft a new allocation formula. The results of this work were presented to the board in a variety of workshops and public sessions, which culminated in the board passage of the new allocation formula policy this past June. The policy focuses on a formula that aligns university funding to the student and continues the allowance for board approval of system-wide initiatives. The university funding formula has 2 components: core operations and enrollment. Core operations is 25% of the appropriation amount allocated to the universities. It recognizes the need for all universities to maintain a certain level of activities and is scaled by enrollment. Enrollment is 75% of the appropriation and provides funding on a base student plus additive funding for underrepresented minorities, Pell, progress toward degree, and program levels. The associated procedure with a detailed methodology which supports the attached information in the board materials has been published. Turning to the motion before you this morning. In alignment with the policy, the motion, which is in attachment 9A or item 9A, attachments 1 and 2 in your materials, outlines the board approval for the appropriation for system-wide initiatives. The remaining appropriation is distributed in accordance with the procedures that were just published. System-wide initiatives include funding of the Office of the Chancellor, which according to Act 188 is 0.5% of the appropriation. The audit function, professional development in accordance with collective bargaining agreement, and replenishment of the system reserve in accordance to board policy. Other system-wide initiatives include a board-level review of enrollment management functions and opportunities for growth in the changing competitive environment, which you all discussed this morning. I'd like to note that the savings associated with the sale of the Dixon University Center was able to be redirected to the cost increases required to replenish the system reserve and the Office of the Chancellor. This allowed us to hold the system-wide initiatives to a 4% increase, allowing 16% increases for funding directed to the universities. And finally, while not requiring board approval, for informational purposes, in item 9B is the distribution of the $125 million in coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds as directed by the fiscal code, with a recommended even split for the integrating universities. We'll provide further information about these funds and the required federal reporting in the October board meeting. And with that, I would like to turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks to, many thanks to Chair Larry Skinner and the University Success Committee for terrific work this past year on the allocation formula, which was approved last month, so that we can actually accomplish this allocation today. I'd like to hear a motion that the Board of Governors approves the allocation of funds from the system's fiscal year 2022-23 education and general appropriation as reflected in attachment 1. Can I have a second?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Questions, discussion.
And board members on Zoom, you can just
Yep.
click raise hand
Yep.
if you have any questions or comments.
Right.
No hands.
Okay, fine then. Hearing no questions or comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Are there- Thank you. Are there any opposed? Please say no. Very good. The motion carries. Fine. Next item of business is 9C ratification. Thank you very much, Sharon, by the way. Great job. 9C ratification of side letters, and let me call on Brian Mubu to present item C regarding the ratification of these various side letters related to the integrations. Thank you, Brian. Go ahead.
Good morning, governors. The information in your packets related to item 9C includes the ratification of several side letters that we have, the state system has achieved with several of our bargaining units. As noted, the bargaining units are ABSCUF that represent faculty and coaches, OPIU that represents our nurses, PASH's Officers Association representing our rank and file police, SPIFPA that represents the supervisory police, PDA, which is our doctors, and AFSCME, which represents a number of different positions. So these side letters are similar side letters to what was presented in the fall of last year that deals with transitional items as the universities have been integrating effective July 1 of 2022. So we present these side letters, and the motion is to ratify the tentative agreements. And so I will pause there and see if there's any questions with regards to any of the side letters that we have agreements with.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Senator Martin has his hand.
Okay, Senator Martin, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through some of the side letters, I've noticed the date being utilized to calculate certain things. I believe it's October 31st, 2021. Can you tell me the significance of why that date was selected?
So there's no specific significance to, to that date. That's just the date that the parties agreed to.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Good catch though, Senator Martin. I'm impressed. All right, any other questions or comments? And you would know. All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in
Oh,
favor?
wait, there needs to be a motion.
Oh, I thought we made, oh, you're right. I thought I made the motion before the discussion. Sorry about that. I need a motion, please, that the Board of Governors ratifies the tentative agreement, side letters, and authorizes the Chancellor to execute the appropriate documents. Thank you. Second, thank you. All right, and now is there any further discussion? Okay, nobody on Zoom? Okay, then, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Please say no. Okay, thank you very much. The motion carries. The next item of business is 9D, elections. So now I will hand the virtual gavel to Jan Yeomans to moderate the next portion of this meeting regarding senior officer elections.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to moderate this portion of the meeting, the purpose of which is to conduct elections of officers. Now, as a reminder, our bylaws call for the annual election of officers at the third quarterly board meeting each calendar year, which is today. The term of office for officers will begin the moment they're elected and continue until their successor is chosen and assumes office. The officers of the Board of Governors include a chairperson and 2 vice chairpersons. To begin the process, I make the motion that the Board of Governors elect the following members to serve as officers for the 2022 through 2023 year. Cindy Shapira as chair, David Mazer as vice chair, and Sam Smith as second vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a second to my motion? Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, Cindy, David, Sam, congratulations on your reelection, and thank you for being willing to do this for us. I now yield the gavel back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, very much. Appreciate it. My thanks as well. And again, thanks to board members for service on our committees. The only change I'll kind of make informally is that, well, let's say Sam is the vice chair and Mazer is the second vice chair. We'll just, because he's in the room. Okay, thank you very much. Then open up the whole thing again.
We can start over if you'd like.
So our next item is really another really good one, and it's also signals we're getting toward the end of the meeting. But I do want to take just a little bit of time again to reflect on this year. It was a remarkable year with remarkable work that has been done by so many. We have had board meeting after board meeting with really major, intense, big ticket items, if you will. That's gotten a lot of attention. But at the same time, the work has continued to carry out the work of the universities and the system. And there are just countless incredible people who are working with our students and working at our universities and in the system office, and you all move forward our mission every single day. So thank you again, faculty, staff, students, the staff in the chancellor's office, et cetera. And I'll just give a few examples because we don't celebrate people enough, really, and we want to do that. So a few examples. Our dedicated faculty and staff helped approximately 25,000 students achieve their educational goals and walk across graduation stages this year. Thank you. I think that's an amazing achievement. And under the leadership of Presidents Pearson and Hannah, Teams of incredible people have worked hard to advance every aspect of integrations, all the stuff we don't see, IT, human resources, and to the stuff, that's kind of more front stage and forward facing, academics, student affairs, finance and administration, critically important to our operations, all of that, so that we could reach the point where Penn West and Commonwealth University could launch on July 1st. We have people that are working to advance the best in policy and practices in our community college transfers, which we talked about. More work will be done on that. Of course, workforce development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is critical to support and achieve these other goals around student success and workforce development. Enrollment management, good strides. We need more, but we've made great strides in that. And that's all due to the people who are doing that work, and so much more. We are collaborating in ways, that we didn't 6 years ago. I'll keep using that milestone because this marks literally, 6 full years for me. Shared services like procurement, HR, payroll, to do things that not only save money, but they lay the groundwork for systemness. And this is something else, that is a major goal. How do we behave so that we get the best benefits and all the economies of scale and understand and utilize the incredible resources that as a collective system we have and that we can employ. OneSys, which is our much more collaborative state student information system. These are huge achievements. This is the backbone, right, of being able to work like a system. And when we can work like a system, what we do is just hugely expand the opportunities for students and for their success. And that's really, again, the North Star and the thing we all care about. So this has been truly an amazing year. I know this year is going to be equally exciting. And I feel like we're now, going from something that revolved around finances, getting our house in order, operations, etc., to something that we all love and we want to talk about, and it's positive, and that's our students. So I feel like this next year we open that up and we just move forward with all speed ahead, it's going to be an amazing year. This is truly transformative work. When I was doing my doctorate, I had a big argument. Well, no, he won, so it wasn't really an argument. By my chair, my dissertation chair, who would not let me use the word transformation when I was talking about colleges and universities that were transforming and what the role of the boards were, because that has a pretty specific definition in academia. But and it revolves around truly doing work in a new way, not looking like yourself in a positive way, but really thinking differently and acting differently, and looking at outcomes differently. All of it, that's really transformation. And I think we're really in that process. This is not the PASHE of 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or certainly 1983, when it came together as 14 individual institutions, that were going to kind of sort of, be under a governance structure. That we are on our way truly to transformation. Our work as a board is critical to that, because we set the tone and we set the policies and we do the oversight. So, we're seeing other things. I also want to offer, because of that, our first resolution that we're going to make today to a group of volunteers who have been in the throes of this and have been critically important to their universities. And these are the councils of trustees of the 6 universities that were involved in the integrations that came together to form the 2 new institutions. And as such, their 6 councils of trustees are coalescing into 2 councils. But we greatly appreciate and honor the service of those trustees whose service has come to an end, whose service in this form has come to an end. I'm sure they will continue to serve their communities and our PASHE schools. I have no doubt about that. And so I want to offer this resolution for the integrating councils of trustees. Here, or this is fine. Okay, I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to read this resolution and ask for it to be approved by acclamation. Whereas Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield universities have integrated to form Commonwealth University, and California, Clarion, and Edinburgh have integrated to form Penn West University. And whereas the coming together of these great universities will not only preserve the power and the promise that they each hold within their local communities, but also represent new levels of influence across their regions. And whereas the integrations process will see the formulation of new councils of trustees that are equally representative of each integrating institution. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Governors proudly and with great appreciation recognizes the trustees whose service is ending after years of dedication to their universities, and hereby honors their contributions to advancing the cause of public higher education in Pennsylvania. And again, by voice acclamation, I move approval of this resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now I think I do go to the podium for this one. Okay. All right, here is. Move to the podium for this one, which is in honor of Andy Lehman. Who is here? Good, I thought he. Chris, is this okay that he's allowed to work from
home today, so he's on break.
Okay, fine.
You had to take a day off, Chris.
Oh, Andy, we're so delighted to see you and to welcome you back, to honor you as our former chief counsel and your incredible service with this resolution. So I am going to read this resolution first. Whereas Andrew C. Lehman began his service to Pennsylvania's state system of higher education in the chief counsel's office in 2004, and whereas Andy distinguished himself as legal counsel to the universities, the chancellor, and the board through nearly 2 decades of service, and whereas Andy assumed the role of chief counsel in 2013 and served in that capacity until 2022, when he was appointed as vice president and chief of staff at Westchester University. And whereas Andy provided the calm, insightful leadership necessary to advise an organization of this kind, all while stewarding relationships with internal and external stakeholders to the benefit of our students. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Governors proudly recognizes the accomplishments and contributions of Andrew C. Lehman, celebrates his success, and declares Thursday, July 1st, 2022 as Andy Lehman Day in the state of Florida. Whoa! By voice acclamation, I move approval of this resolution. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. And, all I can say is I'm happy to make this resolution because every time his name, came up on my iPhone, I just got this in the pit of my stomach.
My family does.
Yeah, right. And now it's Jeff, Yeah, before Andy, I ask you to say a few words. Dan, would you like to make a few remarks?
Yeah, just a few. When he told me he was going to Westchester, for a while, he was, we're working on our relationship. Actually, chief counsel is the hardest job in the state system, because there are multiple clients and sometimes it's hard to work out the hierarchy. I learned that, I guess, and Andy has navigated that and so much more. In my time, in his time with me, or my time with him, has been such a mentor and such a friend and a colleague. And we would sit around in my office before we sold the building, of course, and we were still in it. And now, I mean, the tremendous challenges that we just face together, and Andy's calm and patient intelligence and creativity, his insight into human behavior and people and politics and the nature of the system. You are seriously missed at the Office of the Chancellor. I hope you're using all those skills effectively at Westchester and steering it in helping its president. So I envy him for having access to your insights on a daily basis. But Andy, you've been a great friend to me, to the system. There are a number of us in the Office of the Chancellor who occasionally reflect on some of the waves we've surfed, the way they crashed into one another, and somehow came out okay. So I'm glad you're still nearby, and if you change your phone, please let me have the number. And good to see you.
Thank you. And so I'm going to present this to you, Andy. Here it is. It's beautiful. And ask you to say a few words. We're going to get a picture. Cody's going to.
Feel far too young to have these accolades. I know, Madam Chair, Chancellor, board members, presidents, staff, union leadership. Mr. Smith, I was going to open my Robert's Rules of Order, but why start now? In 2004, I actually applied for this job as university counsel through a newspaper ad, a physical newspaper. And the then chief counsel, Jeff Cooper, was looking for a litigator and took a shot on me, primarily to work in the grievance arbitration world. And for the next 9 years, I was very fortunate to represent individual universities and work on labor contracts. And I happened to meet a serious but very easy-tempered business dean from a school that I had no idea would later become my supervisor. So it's just funny how life works. But in 2013, I was voluntold that I was going to be acting chief counsel, a job which I was not aspiring to do, but it was thrust upon me. And with the confidence of this board and many of your predecessors, it really became a labor of love. And it was trial by fire, because I believe I received the appointment and 2 days later, we had a board meeting. And so for those board members who were told it's 4 board meetings a year, I did a little lawyer math. And in the 9 years I was chief counsel, we had 58 board meetings.
4 years.
And countless calls and workshops. But the thing I really want to say today is, though I had the support of the chancellor and his team and this board, I went from practicing law to really managing a law practice. And what made it not always easy, but navigable, was the colleagues that I had in the legal office. I always liked their humor, their legal acumen, their passion for the law and the mission of the system, their creativity, and yes, their happy hours. But it was when I moved into that chief counsel role, I realized how blessed I really was to work with some of the best lawyers I have to this day ever encountered. being the chief counsel for almost 9 years was only possible because of the great colleagues, the lawyers and the staff and the real work that they did. So when Randy asked if I could attend today, I really pushed back, not because I didn't want to come to a board meeting. Lord knows it's just another board meeting, right? But I didn't really want this about me because it's not about me. It's about the team. Sometimes my office or I would take the credit for proposed approaches, advice, or solutions, but it was a team of colleagues like Jeff and all the others who deserve the credit, whether it was the Governor's Office of General Counsel and our liaison to the state system, or the Office of Attorney General partnering with sensitive and tricky issues. It was never my legal acumen that got the results. It was, and I'm sure it continues to be, the work of the team. So today, to this board and my system colleagues, I say thank you for trusting me to provide counsel to you. But the real recognition goes to those current and former lawyers and staff that enabled me to enjoy the challenges and successes we achieved. It always will be about the team effort in the legal office. It'll always be about the dedicated public servants that represent the state system. And I'm confident the state system would not be nearly as well positioned if it wasn't for my former colleagues in the legal office. So it was the support of the general counsel, the chair, and the board, as well as the chancellor, that enabled me to transition to a non-lawyer role and remain part of a system that I believe in. And I do believe in it because I have one son who graduated in May 22 from Bloomsburg and another who is enrolling in Bloomsburg this fall. Sorry, Chris. And through all the professional and personal trials and challenges that many of you know I faced, you have become so much more than colleagues and former clients. You are truly like family, and for that I'm blessed. So thank you.
That was fun, you know, and Andy, this is about you. And I don't mean to top you, but I just have to say, I was told I was becoming chair and you know, the next day did. And a month later had a strike. So, you know, I don't want to top you. 2 days later, you had a board meeting. Well, I had a strike. So just saying. Thank you. That was wonderful. So before we adjourn, just for the record, I want to report that the board met in executive session yesterday from noon till 1 p.m. to discuss legal and personnel matters. Is there any other business to come before the board today from anybody?
No answers.
Okay, hearing none, I look forward to seeing you in October at our next meeting at the Cal campus of Penn West University.
Penn West, California.
Thank you. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.